Morning, everyone. All right, welcome back, everybody. It's a cold, wet, and miserable day outside, and the temperature is going to keep dropping lower and lower as the day goes. So, yeah, I'm trying to get as much done as possible before the weather hits. Project today is getting the generator running again with the new batteries that it has. If you guys remember, that red battery is the one that was on here. That is an aviation style 24-volt battery, and that is completely dead. It won't even take a charge anymore. It's also old, so it wasn't unexpected. But these batteries are a lot cheaper than those batteries. So we got two of these, but now the challenge arises of making 24 volts out of two 12 volts, which is easy. You just put them in series. But that requires me to do a little bit of extra work and getting the cabling right. So that's what I'm doing right now. I already got some of the work done. I already got the old cabling and the aviation connector off of the generator now. So now it's just let's wire up these new terminals and fire this thing up. After this, we're going to go over to the other hangar and check out the F-100. The guys have been working on that as well, trying to solve that, I think it was an oil leak that it had. But we're going to go see what's going on with the F-100 before too long today. So stick around, guys. All right, so I got all the cables made up. I got the batteries strapped down to the generator skid here so they're not going to fall off, especially once I crank this thing up. Pretty much ready to start hooking things up, so I'm going to get started on that. And I got the interconnect. That one is ready to go from right here. So 1 and 2. There we go. Hammer, there it is. There we go. Alright, let's see what we get for voltage. Put on the hold feature. Let's see. Positive to negative. Aha! 25 volts. I like it. Let's see, make sure that shows up. Yep. 25 volts. I am happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and get my positive hooked up first. Like so. All right, so here's the finished result, guys. And I put the little color markers here so you guys can identify the post pretty quickly, because it's kind of hard to see where it says positive and negative. But for these two batteries, this is the most positive, this is the most negative. There's your interconnect, so it starts here. So here to here is 12, so it comes back to here to make 24 here. So, and everything's all nice and snug and tight. So now I just have to take this, get all the loose stuff off of it, and crank her up and see what we got. All right, I'll give you guys a little walk around tour of this little diesel generator here. Got our little control panel. Looks like a little jump plug that we can use for also with batteries. Already checked the oil, it's pretty good. Oil pressure gauge is way over here by the engine. This is just a little air-cooled diesel generator, a little 2-cylinder. It has a similar engine, or it could even be the same engine as the one on the high pack. A little fuel tank. I think, what is this rated at? 5 kW? Yeah, 5 kilowatt. So it's not huge, but it is quiet and it's reliable, and it runs the hydraulic, that small hydraulic mule that we use for testing hydraulic systems on the other aircraft, like the ME-262 and the A4. So what we should have here, aha, we got lights. So I know it's chilly, so I'm gonna preheat this. All right, there's that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and set some throttle. I don't know how far out that's gotta go, but Almost. Give him a little bit more heat. Well, I'm pretty happy with that result. We get this thing pushed inside, we'll move on to the F4 and the F-100. All right, so over here at the F4, little communications troubleshooting, and what do you got a neat little toy that we've seen once before.
Yeah, so we pulled both of the comm antennas off of the jet, and I hooked them up to a little tool that I have here called a Nano VNA, which is a vector network analyzer. I've shown it here on the show in the past, but I've learned how to use it a lot better this time. So what we checked here on this with this little tool is we checked the actual antennas themselves in the SWR, and at the operating frequency range for the radios on this aircraft, the SWR is pretty good for what it needs to be on the two antennas.
So in other words, the antennas are good.
The antennas are good, yeah. So we started chasing coax problems, and I used another tool called I call them a toner. Some people call them Fox and Hounds. I use these at my regular day job as a network administrator for a hospital. And we hooked it up to the top antenna, which the top antenna turns out to be COM2. We've got that all sorted, and we have good connection, both continuity and with the Fox and Hound.
So 2 and 3 are good.
2 and 3 are good. We moved down to COM1, which is the lower antenna.
Down on the belly.
And we were not able to get a tone up into the radio hatch up there in door 19.
So we found a bad cable.
So that coax cable has some issues that we're gonna have to look into. But I wasn't able to get it with the Fox and Hound. Didn't have any tonage up to the top. Then we checked it with a meter for continuity, and it does not have continuity from that cable up into door 19. So that's a bit of a problem. We're gonna go try and figure out what we need to do to get that corrected. But yeah, for now at least we know what the problem is now, which is, you know, a big part of troubleshooting.
That's step one.
That is step one. So we know more now than we did this morning, which I'm pretty happy.
And I'm totally digging the shirt.
Thank you. Commando store.
But awesome.
But
progress.
Yep, we're figuring her out slowly but surely, and we'll get it all sorted here pretty soon. At least we know what we're looking at now.
Slowly maybe, and don't call me Shirley.
Yeah. All right.
All right, that's that. Now we're gonna go move on and see what's going on with the F-100. All right, everybody. This is where we're at with the F-100, and as you notice, we got a leak. That's oil. So if you remember back during the air show, this is the F-100 grounded herself because she's spraying a leak. And what we're looking at is literally the belly of the beast. So this panel had to come off. This is where the tail hook attaches. And right up here, that's the accessory gearbox of the engine. The starter would normally bolt to that flange right there. So there's a gasket somewhere in here. I think it's where the case halves meet. So that gasket has to get replaced. That's what's split and spraying a leak, I believe. That's the gasket, right, Jack?
Yeah, so it runs up there and then back around to the top.
So there's an awful lot of stuff that's got to come off and out in order to split the case and change that seal. Yeah, it doesn't look fun, but at least we don't have to pull the engine, I don't think, right?
No, we shouldn't have to.
No, because pulling the engine involves pulling the tail off first.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we've taken the. We got the starter taken off. There's the hydraulic pump, and then the generator.
What's this little duct?
Just the cooling duct for the generator. So we've got air that comes in, and this vents out. This panel here, which normally the tail hook is mounted right here.
Yeah, you can see the
There's a
cross.
very large cross structural member here. But there are two vents in the panel that go right here, which if you've ever seen the startup videos, the starter door is right here.
Okay. Oh yeah, because the duct is right there.
Yeah, so there's two little vented sections of this panel, and that's where all the vapor and cooling air just gets ducted out underneath the jet here.
Got it.
Yeah. Got to keep those accessories cool.
Mm-hmm. And you're trying to get something out.
Yes.
It's one of those you can see it but feel it kind of thing. So like in the F4.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. There we go. Got it. Yeah. These.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that, Jack.
No problem.
All right. Just like we were talking about a minute ago, here's the starter system out of the F-100, which is slightly different, actually a lot different than the F4, because this one has a valve. So, do you want to talk about that? Because that's different.
So it works the same basic way. Blow air in, turns the shaft, turns the motor. Different than some things like on the A4 or the F4, whereas when you turn on the air, immediately air is going to the starter. The F-100 was slightly different. At one point they were modified with the same starter system as a B-52. And that includes this valve right here. And so when a pilot is ready for to start the engine, Rick will be sitting in the front cockpit, and he'll call for air. And there's a button he presses in the front cockpit. And when he presses that button, it opens that valve and turns on the igniters. Air come into here. Inside the starter is a centrifugal switch.
That's a electrical plug?
Yeah, it's a centrifugal switch. When the engine comes up to speed, it will automatically then close that valve to cut off air to the engine. And then Rick will tell us to kill the air, and the start will continue to proceed as normal.
And it won't overspeed it and shear the shaft?
Yeah.
Not like the F4.
Yeah. So it's kind of a protection system, and it worked. It was basically the same system that apparently was used in the B-52s.
Neat. Awesome. That's pretty interesting on this. These old aircraft have a lot of neat little features in it for their age. And speaking of the tail hook, here it is. And what we got here?
So to pull the tail hook off, you see this fixture. When the tail hook is on the airplane, it's basically a giant leaf spring. It'll actually fold more than that. We took a lot of the tension off it, but it'll actually fold up a lot more than that. And it presses up against the fuselage and locks in place.
That's that pin that we got to pull.
Yeah, if you were to need to catch a wire on the runway, you just press it, and that leaf spring, it just comes down with tremendous force and drags the runway and catches the cable. So to get it off, you need to take the tension off of that, the pin that goes through that mounts it to the top of the fuselage. So when you'll take this fixture right here that they have, and you'll put it onto the hook while it's still attached to the airplane, and tighten it down, and that holds it largely straight. And then you can actually you get a long board, people on both sides of the airplane, you release the hook, let it down to the ground, and then at that point the tension is off of the pin, and you can pull the pin out and slide the hook off of the airplane. Before we put it back on, we'll crank this back down, and it will straighten that hook right back out again.
Oof, springs.
Yeah.
Scary stuff. I don't like springs. All right, well that about wraps up my weekend here at the hangar. As of today, when this video goes out, I know the winter storm that's going around the U.S. right now, that's going to affect here in Texas as well, and it's going to get pretty cold, especially you usually don't get that cold, but it's going to drop into the 20s here. So for all of you guys that are affected by this winter storm, hopefully you guys stay warm, stay safe. I know the roads are going to be really crappy. We're expecting crappy roads here with all the ice and the sleet and stuff. But yeah, just stay safe, stay warm out there, guys, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.